for those who are not here. So this is the Document Intelligence Studio. Now you can use the resource. Let me explain it this way. The solution or the technology is provided by Microsoft, and access to the resource can be through the REST API. That is what we call REST API, right? API means the
application programming interface.
Excellent. Thank you, Benedict. Application programming interface. And what that means is the model is existing in the cloud, right? And Microsoft is opening up the endpoint and saying that if you have created a resource, you can access this technology with these two parameters. And what are the parameters? Just the key and the endpoint. Now, when you are deploying the solution, you deploy it into any region of your choice. For people who are concerned about data privacy, the region you choose will determine where you want your resource to be based on your data privacy policy, maybe within your organizations. Like, for example, companies in Europe would not want their data outside of Europe. So you find them desiring to deploy their resource in West Europe, for example, or in Sweden, Central, or anywhere. This resource that I have deployed is located in East US, even though I am here physically in UK. But remember, at the beginning of the class, during the introduction, I talked about regions, Azure regions. If you still remember, you can go through the YouTube video just for your recap. But then the two parameters that Microsoft provides in order to access the resource are the keys and the endpoint. Now, in the last class, I did mention that you have to be careful the way you expose your keys, because if somebody just has access to this key, any of these keys, any of them, you don't have to use the two at the same, you just have to pick one, right? The person has access to this key and this endpoint, they can consume your resource, and you bear the cost, right? So now the resources itself has network attributes also that allows you to either leave it open to public use. That's why you're saying allow access from all network, or you can restrict it to an internal network we call virtual network. So I can create a virtual network, or if I have an existing virtual network, I can add it here, add to existing virtual network. If you remember, I talked about virtual network during our class. I have one existing. I can just come here and add to it and click. I don't know why it's not. It's okay. Subnet, yeah. So if I select the virtual network, select the subnet, and enable this, I'm going to be restricting access to this resource to only clients or IP addresses that are within the virtual network. Remember, I've taken a class about IP addressing. If you remember, IP addressing, what is IP addressing? Your typical post office address is just an example of IP addressing. IP addressing helps to identify computers on the network, either on the internet, that's the wider network, on a WAN or a LAN. A LAN is local area network. And I mentioned to us here before that when it comes to the cloud, and you are talking about Microsoft Azure solution, a LAN in Microsoft Azure solution is VNet. That's the virtual network, right? If you go to GCP, it's called a different name. If you go to AWS, it's called a different name. But the approach to the networking is the same for most of the cloud providers. So what I'm trying to say here is in terms of the attributes of these application. So the application also has identity, which you can use to access it. You can, from this identity, determine how this resource is going to be called, apart from the keys and endpoint. For example, you want to restrict a certain group of users to have access to these resources. This is where you define it. So no, not here. Sorry, you define it from the IAM, the access identity and access management from the IAM. The identity here is when you want to give this resource its own identity to access another resource. So typically, when you're designing a software or a solution for an organization, 2, 3, 4 resources or technologies can interoperate. Take, for example, the banking application I just explained to us. In that scenario, about 2 or 3 from just surface value technologies are interoperating. The document intelligence, the computer vision resource, and all of them would have access to a database or a storage account where the document you have submitted will have been uploaded to, and then they will go there and fetch it. So the resource will act as an agent to go and pick up the document from the storage account and process it. But in order for the storage account to give it access, there has to be, an understanding that this resource is coming in as an entity in itself. That's where you have this identity. So these are just some of the attributes. If you come to the properties, it tells you everything about the resource. In this case, there is the subscription where it belongs to, the subscription ID, the resource group where it belongs to, and this entire thing here is called the resource ID or URI. And then you get the date it was created and the location. Other things here, if you want to do any form of automation, it's here. But basically, what is more important? Okay, I didn't talk about encryption. Encryption is just as the word is, to encrypt. If you want to add a second layer of security on the device, you can decide that you want to use an encryption, and this encryption is to prevent unauthorized usage of the resource on a broader spectrum. The default is the Microsoft managed keys, but some customers have their own encryption keys that they use, and Microsoft gives them the opportunity to use their own encryption key, which they would have stored in another resource called the key vault. The key vault in Azure is where you store your encryption keys or any type of keys. There are different types of keys that you can store. And when we say keys in computing, it's just a string of data or character that are combined in a very combined by introducing an element called a SHA, S-H-A, such that you lock it up, and you prevent unauthorized use of a resource or unauthorized access, if you are trying to create a boundary of who will have access to that resource. And the idea of encryption is that when you encrypt a data, you need a corresponding key to decrypt it. So you can see here, it tells you the selected key must have RSA support. So these are just standards of key encryption, these things you are seeing here. So I'm just trying to do a general overview of what we talked about. I will take us back to the Document Intelligence Studio, where I mentioned the various functions of the Document Intelligence resource. You can use it to extract printed and handwritten text along with barcodes, formulas, and font size. For example, 3 days ago, I had to open a bank account, and they told me to sign on top of a white sheet and use my phone camera to take a picture of my signature. And by that, the application will go and place my signature in the right spot of their own documentation. So that is the read function. The layout function is when you want to extract tables or forms, right? And then we have general documents. So there are pre-built models also. So the document intelligence AI service, you can build your own custom model. And custom model in a sense where you are part of an organization. Let's say, for example, in a country like Nigeria, where we have different types of forms that people use. The forms we use for identification in Nigeria will necessarily, it's very likely it's not going to be the same as the type of form here. Because back home in Nigeria, when they say fill a form, your local government will be asked, your religion will be asked, whether you have tribal marks will be asked, things like that. So if you are working as a data scientist or as sorry, is this meeting throwing people out? I see that people are struggling to join. Nike, did you struggle to join the meeting?
No, I think it was my network.
Oh, okay. Because as you joined, somebody else left. I just wanted to be sure.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. You're welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah. So the models, you can build custom models, but Microsoft already have pre-built models that you can just pick and use for certain types of documents. We have documents like invoices, receipts, identity documents, health insurance documents, US tax documents, all the various types are here, mortgage documents, marriage certificates, credit card, contract, or business card. For custom model, if you want to build a custom model, you come here and select this UI. Now, Benedict, you were asking about UI UX. You see here that this application here, the studio, it's just a typical web front end, but behind this front end, there is now the back end, right?
Okay.
So yeah, for those who develop the solution, the developers, they actually must be full stack developers, because you can see here they've used CSS, they've used HTML. If I right click here now, not sure if you can see my right clicking, but I can go now and do inspect. If I inspect that page, this is what you will see. Can you see now? So all the various HTML code is what you are seeing here. So everything that is happening here is calling the service at the back end. And if I want to know how the service is being called at the back end, I will come here to network. Can we all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, you can.
If I come to network now, just look at, I'm going to refresh the page. You will see what will happen now. Did you notice anything? Did you notice anything? Did you notice anything?
A lot of things
You
transferred.
can see file system.
Yeah, so all of this you are seeing is the data exchange between the front end you are seeing and the back end, right? So if you look here, you will see name, you will see status, you will see type, you will see initiator, size, and the time. A lot of the information takes less than 1 minute. From everything here is microseconds. It's even less than 1 second, right? So this second line is a JavaScript code that was called up. If I expand this now, if I go to the header, you will see the information about this exchange. Now, there was a request that was made to the service, and the request was made to this URL. Can you see it? And the request was a GET request. A GET request means my browser demanded an information from this server, and it sent this protocol. If you remember the early class when I talked about the OSI model, the application level HTTP protocol. So this protocol here is called GET. And then there was a status code that shows us what was the outcome of this GET operation. The outcome was that it was a 200. 200 means a success. If there was an error in getting this JavaScript or this function, you would have gotten maybe a 400 or a 505. If you get 505 or 500, it means that the server is not available. The server is dead if you get a 500. So these are examples of interview questions. I can pull up HTTP status codes for you on Wikipedia, for example. You see list of HTTP code, and what is HTTP? Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Response status codes. Status codes are issued by a server in response to a client request made to the server. It includes code from requests for comments. These are just standards, right? If I scroll down, you will see the different types of code. You see 200, it says standard response for successful HTTP request, right? And the request method here can either be a GET or a POST. A POST means the client is trying to put an not even put. There is POST, there is put, there is GET. It's trying to create a record in the server, of course, after being authenticated. So that is POST. So here 201 is another type of this code. Is good to know them. It's good to know them. They are typical interview question. It's not like you will be asked what is 206. No, there are the common ones, like 200 is a common one. In fact, the idea is to understand.
That 404.
Yes, the idea is to understand the range. If you see anything 200, it means it just means a certain thing. And we have 300, you can see 3xx. If you go down, you will see 4xx. If you go down, you will see 5xx. So anything 5xx is server. It's server. Anything 500, just know it's server, right? So let's say you are working as an application support technician, or and your user tells you, oh, we're getting a 500, 501 error, 502 bad gateway. These are all, errors that are related to what the server is experiencing. For the 400 can indicate network error. Can also indicate if you are calling the service in the wrong format, right? It can indicate when you are calling the service in the wrong format. For example, 404 means the resource is not even found. What you are calling is not available. That's what 400 means. It says requested result could not be found, but may be available in the future, right? 403, forbidden. For every resource, there are rules on how the person who provides the resource wants you to call it. Some, like I said in the beginning of the class today, I said that if you want to call the document intelligence resource, you need the keys and you need the endpoint. If peradventure you change this endpoint, you might get a 403 error, right? And to tell you request is forbidden because you are not calling it according to the rule. This may be due to the user not having the necessary permission for a resource, or needing an account of some sort, or attempting a prohibited action, right? So these are just, so I will encourage you to just review this HTTP error code. Sorry, the way I normally teach. I teach like I branch off. I hope I'm not taking you off your concentration, am I? Please, I need some feedback.
No, so
No, no, sir.
Okay. I hope you are not lost. If you have any question, you can stop me to ask, please. Yeah, so does anybody have any question?
No, I don't know.
All right, thank you. So last 2 weeks ago, we used the document intelligence to read the document, and we were able to analyze a sample document that was existing. Right now, I'm just trying to connect again. If I come here, I select development, which is the subscription I'm using. I'll select the resource group. Then I have an existing document intelligence. I'm not creating a new one, so I'll just do continue and do finish. So I'm setting up the project here in the document intelligence studio. If you remember, this was a sample document we analyzed. If I click here and I run analysis, it's the system has extracted the information from this document. The system has extracted information from this document, and that information is here. If you remember, I talked about confidence score. The confidence score will also be shown. This confidence score, as a data scientist, will tell you the quality of the operation, in terms of probability. This is actually a probability. If your confidence score is low, you know that you would have to work on your model again by retraining and providing it more data. If you still remember what Nameka said last week, every machine learning model works with data. You have to feed it with sufficient data to train the model, so that if you now need any if you need it to yeah sorry, my son interaction. Yeah, this is the output of the operation. From here I can download this. If I download it, I can come, can open it. I want to open that JSON file that let me stop sharing and share a screen. Present something else. Yeah. And to present this screen. Yeah, so the document I downloaded, I opened it up in Visual Studio. Visual Studio is an IDE application, integrated development environment. That is, in other words, it's just a software that is used to build other software. You can use it to manipulate any other data or open any other file. All I did was to come here, open file, and I opened the JSON file. So that file I downloaded from the studio is a JSON format, and it just shows me the result of that document scan. So from a physical document that is PDF, you now have it in form of a data. Every information has been extracted, as it were. You will see the model ID is defined here. The model ID is called pre-built read. You can name this anything. If you are building your own custom model, you can give this any name, right? API version has to do with the most recent version of the API that Microsoft has provided for these results. So as they make improvement on the results, they will always change the API version. You can see that this version is indicating 29th of February 2024, and it's a preview version. If you see anything in preview, means you are not advised to use it in production environment. Production environment is your live environment that your customers are using, but it doesn't mean that you can't use it for testing. Some customers will decide if they like the feature, because as they make improvements on the product, one API version, maybe a previous API version, is not giving the customer the outcome they want as compared to the more recent API version that is in preview. They might decide to just go ahead of it to using the preview version. But usually for legal reasons, Microsoft always have a clause to say, we encourage you to use the preview version only for testing development and not advisable for production. It's because they can easily make upgrades to this preview. So if you want to use a more stable one, what they call that is public generally available API version. That's GA. It's called GA, generally available. So if you look at this, now JSON is a file format that is used for data manipulation, right? When you're talking about REST, REST is, I think I define REST. Can somebody tell me what the definition of REST is?
You said it's REST API.
Yeah, so what's the meaning of REST? It's an acronym, right?
I'm just going to Google now. I know API is
you don't need to.
programming interface.
Excellent. So frankly, I expect you to just Google it. I don't expect you to give it to me off heart. You know why? Because we live in a world where information is available at your fingertips now. So REST just means representational state transfer. And that representational state transfer means that the data is presented in the form of key value pair. So for every key, there is a value. 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 For every key, these are values. When it comes to pages, these are all its values. But you will see that the format, okay, let me just help you understand how to read a JSON document, right? Let's break it down. So if you come here, this curly brace is the parent value that encloses the entire document. But within this parent curly brace, you can have a sub one. So for example, these values and what did I say earlier? Key value pair, sorry. This is a key and this is its value. Status, succeeded. Creation date is a key and this is its value. These are keys and value. So, but when it came to pages, you have, because it has subsets of what we call children keys. You know, you need to use this open bracket and then a curly bracket inside. Even as you go deeper into it, it's like a web, so to say. You know, you will find that other keys might have other sub values that would have to be defined within it. For example, from this top level of pages, we have page number defined, angle defined, width defined, and then when it came to words, you had to open another open bracket that gave the subset. Do you see it? So as the values are required, and the more multiple you require of each of the value, the more the need to have these open or curly brackets. And for every curly bracket, it will have its opening and its close one. So this one will have its close. And that close, if you trace this line down, if you trace it 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 down, where my cursor is, it's the opening. If you trace it down, if you trace it down, okay, let me just, I think it's a long ride. So keep your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So the reason why developers use VS Code is these are all the visuals they require to understand how they are manipulating their data, if you understand what I mean. If I open this with Notepad, you can't visualize it like this. Do you understand? So if I scroll down, because I'm trying to help you to see where it's going to close. If I scroll down, let's go up again. Let's go up again. Let's go up again. Okay, that's, I think this is the close of the first one, if I'm not wrong. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4. That opening bracket, this is the close. Because I clicked on the opening, this one, because I clicked here, you will notice that the closing also had a bit of highlight over it. Do you understand? Right? I'm explaining this because a lot of us are, still trying to understand computing and the like, so but these are just things you need to understand how data is manipulated. When you are part of a team, you can easily ask questions. It helps you to ask intelligent questions or pass your interview. Right? Any question, please? All right. So for the content is what will be more important to whoever is analyzing this document. So when the developer wants to build the application, all they are going to use is this JSON format, right? So what I want you to know is that when you call on the endpoint using the key and when you call on the API using the key and the endpoint, what the API will give to you is this JSON output. So the reason why I have it like this is because I used the studio to call the results, right? But if I'm going to use REST API, this is how the outcome will come. But there are other ways of calling the service. For example, you just want to use Python, you want to use C#, right? Microsoft also provides that. And what they do is that the application has, the resource has clients that you can use to call the service. If I may share that with you now. And if I go to the code version, you will see the code version here of this whole thing. If I download this here now, now that code that I just downloaded, this is the code. This is the Python code. From here, right? If I will break this down for you, if you check the top here, it says sample analyze underscore read.py. The reason why I know it is Python code is the extension py is there, py. And from here to here are just letters, words to describe everything here. So it tells you what the code does. This code sample shows pre-built read operations with the Azure Form Recognizer client library. What I want you to know is that when it comes to the SDK, like this is the SDK version of the document intelligence resource. It was formerly called Form Recognizer. That's why you're seeing it here. What is an SDK? Software Development Kit. So if you want to use the resource using Python, let's say you are a Python developer, right? And you only know Python. They have given you the client library. Remember, I talked about library before. Library are just snippets of code that have been written, tested, and provided by another body individual to you, right? In this case, we have this is a credentials package that is imported, or rather the credentials client that is imported from the Azure Key Credentials. So every line here is important. If you see in Python, if you see from azure.co.credentials, this is a package in which you require the Azure Key Credential function, or usually function or client. This is more of a function. This is a client, right? And it's because, for example, this two line indicates that you will need a credentials, an operation that requires credentials. And what is the credentials I mentioned? The keys, the endpoint, right? And this from azure.ai.form recognizer import document analysis client. This is the client. It's a class. This is a brief explanation. Document analysis client analyzes information from documents and images and classifies documents. It is the interface to use for analyzing with pre-built models. Example, receipts, business cards, invoices, identity documents, among others. Analyzing layouts from documents, analyzing general document types, and analyzing custom documents with built models. To see a list of other models, they are directing you to see the list of other models. So this document analysis client is just for document analysis to read. If you want to do any other operation, you need to import a separate client for that. Are we getting it? And if you want to know all the various SDK of, let me open this and see the list. So these are just the various models of the document intelligence resource. If you scroll down, can you see the list of the model types? We have the document analysis, and what it does is to read. There is the layout model. We have the general document model. We have the contract model. We have, and for this contract, the pre-built model can carry out all these operations. So these are all the various models of the document intelligence and their capabilities. I talked about the API version before. This is the API versions. I talked about the general availability, which is GA. Usually, customers use this. Microsoft customers use this. If you see anything deprecated, means it's no longer in use. They no longer support this one. That's why it's showing deprecated. So that's just that. So let's go back to analyzing the. So if I come here now, so this is the line that talks about the keys endpoint. So if the endpoint I mentioned earlier, if you need to use this solution now, you come here and put your endpoint in between this closed bracket here. You put your endpoint here and you put your key here, right? In development, it's not advisable to expose your keys and endpoints like this, not directly inside the line of code. Because you need this endpoint within this application now, you need to put it in what we call environmental variable. Environmental variable is a virtual place where it's actually a file, but it's not typically available to the user within the operation of the application. They are where you store all your security information about the application you have built. So I will show us how to create an environmental variable. But for this case, this is physically listed here. It's just for learning purpose that you see it here. Then this line. So in Python, there is what we call functions in Python, right? And in order to define a function, you use the def syntax, this one. This is a syntax. And what is a syntax? The rule of the language is called syntax. So a function that talks about bounding box has been written here, and the parameters required and what to be returned are also defined here. Then there is another function to read. And where is it reading from? It's reading from a URL. This is the URL. It's the sample document that you are trying to read that is defined here, under here. And then this is where the client, this client that is imported here, is now defined to begin to use. But you can see that everything here is still part of this function. Everything you're seeing here is part of this function. That's why there is an indentation between this main line and the inner line. So document intelligence. Now, normally in programming, if you want to define something, the other side of the equation, this is an equation. The other side of the equation is what is the value that the left-hand side will eventually take. Do you understand? So in this case now, you are saying that the document analysis client is equal to this client, which is the framework that you have been provided, and the parameters that this client will require are another variable called endpoint, defined by a value called endpoint, and this endpoint is already defined here. Are you seeing it? Then the credentials is already defined by what we call Azure key credentials, and within it is this value that is defined here. So this value here is what you are defining here. So the essence of writing everything at the beginning is just to provide the value so that you don't keep, just for what is the language now? For they call it, there's a term in programming, I can't remember now, but to make your this is best practice, so to say, because you can't keep putting your value in each of the sentences or lines where you require them. All you do is to define the variable from beginning. So if you see a program, look for all the variables first. Normally variables are defined at the top. That's how programmers write. They define all the variables from the top. As they write the program, if they think they need to define new variable, you see them go back to the top, create a second line and define a second line of variable. Then they will come down to the line where they are coding on and continue. That's how programming is done. So this is another, this whole line is still part of the function that is defined here. Then there is the this credential is now called, the operation is called up, and it provides the result here, right? And then this is a print operation. So you will see it will print out the result and give and provide the content as a sub value. Then This is another condition that will be written if it is handwritten or not. This defines the page width, the page height, and the unit. So eventually, all of this last line just tells you the output of what has been defined. What I want you to know is that this is already written as default. As a programmer, if you want to use it, you just use it as it is. It's like as is. Just it's been given to you on a table, and they say that's why it's called the SDK, right? So all you do is you define your parameters and then you run your program and you get a result. Then you can decide to use the result in whichever way you want. If you are building a product, you will continue your line of code from whatever results you get here and build your solution. I wanted us to run a sample. Are we ready? Should we run a sample code together?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Is it boring?
No, it's not.
No.
All right. So I'll close this.
Just a quick question, Mr. Rao.
Yeah.
I just want to find out when you copied the JSON code and the Python code, did you get both of them from that right-hand corner of the page from the Azure page?
Correct. From here. Okay. I got everything here.
Oh, okay. So you downloaded them.
Yes, this is the download, or you copy. Right. So I got it here.
You're no longer sharing your screen.
Oh, pardon me, sir. I got it here. Here. Can you see?
Yes, so that's for the Python.
Yes, and this is the JSON output.
JSON. Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
And this is a physical readable output that is readable to a layman who doesn't understand programming.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I will share a link with you, and that link will help you. It's a repository of. You're going to try this by yourself after this class or during the week, but I will just show you what to do. I've dropped it in the link. Please save it in your notes. So what I shared with us is a practice exercise from Microsoft. We've done this part, if you remember, which talks about creating the resource in the portal, creating the resource group, name, pricing tier, review, go to resource, right? I've done that part. We've done this part of document intelligence today, right? We've analyzed the read operation, and this was what, it was not this document. We ran analysis on a different document, and it gave this output, right? So the other way, which I just want to show you now, is to develop an app in Visual Studio, right? So the first step says, open the palette and run a Git clone. Now, Git, what is Git? Does anybody know what Git is? Does anybody know what Git is? Nike, what is Git? Can you hear me?
Yes. So I think it's a version control system. That's for if you're making some kind of source code and then you want to put it on that repository as your version control, and then whenever there's any kind of updates that you want to make, you can go back there as where you've stored it,
Yeah.
and then you can make changes and upload.
Okay, thank you very much. So Git is actually a program that is used, that was designed. It was invented by the guy who invented Linux, right? And he came up with this solution because in programming, you have to keep maintaining different versions of your source code, and keeping track of uh, various versions of the code became a problem in the programming world, because you need to make improvements on the product every day. There can be bugs, and you need to evaluate where the bug is. Git version control became necessary, and so he invented Git. So Git, you download this program Git, install it on your laptop, on your system, and then there are commands that go with using Git as a software. So if you want to do a typical copy and paste operation, in Git, all you do is just to type git clone, and then you provide a file that you are trying to clone. And what is clone? GitHub is a repository where you that was created by a company which Microsoft bought over later. So GitHub is actually owned by Microsoft, where you can store your repository of code, and it is run by Git, right? So this URI is a location online that is on GitHub, right? And the idea of cloning that repository is to make a local copy of whatever is in the GitHub. So that GitHub link I copied, this is the location, this is where it's located. So I will encourage you to open a GitHub account. If not for anything, you can easily fork uh, uh, other people's codes or any code that you're interested in and play around with it, or even follow renowned developers. If you have a GitHub account, it's part of what you can share in your CV for your prospective employers. It does not necessarily mean that you are a developer. It just means that you understand the technology and you can use it. I will encourage you to also study about Git. I'm going to share um, uh, the main page about Git to you. Please pick this up as one of your assignments. We're going to take a class. I will create a class separate for Git and how to use Git. But please copy this link and introduce yourself to it. It will be helpful. All right. So what we're trying to do now is to copy a portion of that code. Now, in this GitHub, I can come here and download it as a zip, or copy the URI and go to my IDE. Go. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I just opened a new window of the IDE. This is just the welcome page, right? I will encourage you to learn. Just install this. I believe most of you have done that, or some of you. This first icon here is the Explorer, just your normal folder file Explorer. This one is your search. This one is the source control. So if I want to begin to use Git within this VS Code, I would come here and click on clone. For example, it says clone from GitHub as a remote source. All I would do here is if I drop that URI, sorry, if I drop that, it's not the right click of the mouse. I'll just paste. If I paste now and press enter, it's going to clone that URI for me. So this is just using my mouse, click mouse. But I have this because I have installed Git extension. So if you want to use part of your productivity tools that you need on VS Code is also install extensions. I have different extensions I've installed. There is extension on connecting to my Azure account. So from here, I can connect to my Azure account and manipulate resources within my Azure from inside my VS Code. That's if I want to do infrastructure as code now. You remember I talked about infrastructure as code. You know, there are different extensions that I have here. Within here too, I have the Git. If I search, I think the GitHub or something here, which is already installed. Yeah, I have GitHub Copilot. I have the Git that is already installed. There is Git Actions and all of that. So these are all extensions. I have different extensions that I've used. So we'll come here. Now, if within this IDE, you use your Explorer to add your files, to manipulate your files, and then you need to also come to run. Sorry, you come to I'm looking for the terminal. Okay, because of the terminal, whatever. I'm using a small screen size. I will need to open a new terminal. Terminal is just your command line interface. Remember I talked about terminal before? Your command line interface. In this case, under the VS Code, it's by default taking me to the PowerShell terminal. I can change it to any other thing. I can use command prompt. This is my normal command prompt. Or I can use Git bash because I have Git installed on my laptop now. So I have Git bash. Bash is a type of CLI. CLI just means command line interface. If you don't want to interact with your computer using mouse and click, you just want to use commands, you use CLI. So Git, because I have Git installed, this is why the prompt is showing this way. And it's a bash command. So if you are looking, if you see job description, you say proficiency in bash, proficiency in PowerShell. These are just what they are talking about. And the idea is that for any of the CLI you want to use, just know the commands that you require to manipulate data or manipulate files with it. You can easily get that online. I would advise you pick one, learn it very well, then pick the second one, learn it very well. You can start with your your command prompts. For example, there are basic command prompts commands that you can use to manipulate. Like if you see this now, this tells me that my prompt is on the C drive, on the users folder, and there is a folder called Rafa. I will come here if I want to check what are the list of other folders. For those who started computer, I remember 1990. MS-DOS, if you remember MS-DOS. I don't know who has used MS-DOS.
Yes.
If you have used MS-DOS, this is MS-DOS. This was the first thing I learned when I was learning computer. This thing I'm trying to show you now. Because I remember, 95, when I went to the computer center in my university, this was what I was trying to learn. So I do dir and I press enter, right? I will see all the list of the files that are inside Rafa, right? And then here, I want to
You change
see
directly.
change directory into document. And then I press enter and do IR again. Are you seeing it? If I want to go back to Rafa, I just do change directory, double dot, and create. It has taken me back. Are you seeing it now? This is just like going back on your browser back, right?
You can copy by pressing the right arrow too.
By pressing the right arrow.
To repeat
you mean
the last name.
to yes, up. I can do this. I can, it stores the history of the what's it called, of the operation in the prompt. So does anybody have any question? Is it getting exciting, please?
Getting technical.
Please don't be scared, right? If I do CD document, I can do DR again to see what are the documents inside DR. I have other documents. I have a document called test class. I will do CD into test class, enter, right? Then within this is where I want to copy that repository I've been asked to clone. All I will do is to do git clone, paste that URL, and I press enter. Are you seeing what is happening?
No.
Can you see what is happening? You can see it's cloning the remote repository, and it has eventually cloned it. If I do directory now, that folder was empty before. Maybe I should have shown you it was empty before I copy. If I do DR now, I have the mslen-ai-document intelligence now. Are you seeing it? So I can now come here under my Explorer and say open document. I'll go to the location. I have users, I have Rafa, I have documents, I have test class. I select this folder. So my file explorer has been selected to the left-hand side. This is just a welcome page. So this repository contains codes that have been written by Microsoft programmers. The first one is the parent folder, MSD. It has subfolders, it has instructions, has exercises, has media. These are just PNG files. Has lab files, right? You can ignore these ones. So if we go back to the yes, God. If we go back to, I wanted you to have, yeah. So the next step is we'll come beyond here. We have done this, haven't we? We've cloned this, right? Are we following?
Yes, we are.
So we have copied that, and then it says when the repository has been cloned, open the folder. I've done that. Now it said I should ignore anything. Yes. I just wanted to show you this. So to configure the application, we can use either C#. Now, C# is Microsoft proprietary programming language, just for you to know. So if you want to build anything Microsoft, that is Microsoft focused solution, C# is a programming language to go. Python is another one. I will encourage you to just start with one and just know it well, right? So for this class, we're going to go with Python. This is a sample document. And what we're trying to do here is to extract this value called Microsoft, the customer name, from this sample document. It said they are asking us to go to the lab files /O01 pre-built model folder and expand this folder. So I just wanted to take you there. So, well, this is the lab file. Okay, I've expanded it. Pre-built model is the first class we're going to do. This is another model. So if you clone this repository, you don't need to clone it again for subsequent tests we're going to do. So you just come here, and then because I want to just use Python, this is the Python document that has been created, right? So I select this. Now, this code has already been written by the provided for us as it is. But you notice something has happened. What happened? Can somebody tell me what he or she has noticed? Can somebody tell me what you have noticed? Are you there?
What we noted were?
Have you noticed any changes since when I opened it? Did you notice anything?
I'm not sure.
Okay. You will notice that this is showing yellow line. You notice that this is showing red. This is showing red. Anywhere you see, these are just flags to tell you something is wrong. The code is not complete. Do you understand?
Okay.
They are just flags to show you that something is wrong. And why it's not complete is that in Python programming, you have to, first of all, define an environmental variable or environmental an environment. A virtual environment is what I'm talking about. Virtual environment is where you put your environmental variables. Environmental variables are dependencies that you need for the application to run. So remember I told you about the Azure, this framework. It needs to be available within this application. It needs to be available to the IDE for this application to run successfully. So it's showing this because it's not available. Do you understand? It's showing it because it's not available. And what we're going to do is to see how to configure our virtual environment to make it available. The first thing we do is we open our terminal. It opens by default on PowerShell. Just for Microsoft. The first thing we're going to do is to create an environmental variable where we would store or load all the packages. Now, what is a package in Python? A package is just like framework that I mentioned earlier, are snippets of code that or dependencies that are required within your Python application or the entire Python installation on your system for you to successfully run the application you are trying to build or work on. This application has a package that is azure.co.credential. We need to copy that package and install it. But to copy it, we need a virtual environment first. So in order to create that virtual environment, all we need to do now, when it comes to Python, when you install Python, for example, if I just type Python, enter now, you see that the prompt has changed. Can you see? Did you notice that? Did you notice the prompt has changed? So right now, the Python programming language, I've now entered into it. From here, if I have a Python document, I can now run it from here or any Python function directly. I can just run it. But what I want to do is, first of all, to install the virtual environment. Virtual environment, you can make it, it can be global or localized. Global in the sense that if you install a package, a global or a package on a global virtual environment, you are going to be installing it all over your system. But because you are building different applications that require different packages at different times, it is advisable to just create localized virtual environment where the packages that you need for that particular operation or application development step you are taking, you will put it in that environment you are creating. So what I'm just trying to say is that you use this command python-m. You can see that it's already giving it to me because I've run it before. All I would just do now is to press my last key, get to the end, press enter. Just look here, put your eyes here. Now you see, it says, we notice a new environment has been created. Do you want to select it for the workspace folder? I need to say yes here because I have a new folder and I have a workspace, right? And it has selected it by default. There is a time for me to select. It's selected it by default. And then if you go down, you will see the env file that has been created. But this env file needs to be activated, right? Are we following? I think we spent more than an hour today. So to activate it, all I will type is // VEENV. All I'm trying to do is to access, there is a folder here called scripts, this folder, and I just want to run this. So that's what this entire file is. I will just do last code here, press enter. Now, by activating it, something has happened. Did anybody notice anything? You will notice that an env, a virtual environment has been created here. Do you understand? Now, you would have asked why the word VENV. I can name this anything. All I just did was I can name it anything. I can name it RAF ENV. Right? But there has to be an ENV word there to make the system know that it's virtual environment. Do you understand? So that if I close this session now, even whatever I install here is just local to this workspace that I have installed on. It's not going to affect any other thing that I'm doing if I have any other project on my system. That is the essence of localized virtual environment. And after doing that, the next step is we'll go to the second line of the instruction where they say we should for the C#, if we're going for the C#, we need this dependency, this package. But because we're going for Python, all we do is we copy this one, pip install Azure. Now, in Python, pip is a package that is used to install other packages in Python. Did you get that? Right? So PIP is a package that is used to install other packages in Python. So all I will just do is I'll paste what I copied there. Pip install Azure AI form recognizer. This is just the entire SDK from Microsoft. If I need to install it, the moment I install this now, this will regularize because it will now know that the base package has been installed. So I'll click enter. So after doing that, I think my virtual environment was not activated. It was not activated. Okay, so I will just skip that now and use, because of time, I don't want to waste too much time to troubleshoot that. Let me use a separate setup that I had before. Okay. Can we see my screen now? So I have a separate test that I've done before. And you will notice that I have here the same env file, right? And within it, I've installed all the packages and my client is fully installed. Then I also have the endpoints defined from, I just defined the variables here. I inserted the variables. This is a file that I want to analyze. The model ID I want to use is previewed invoice. Then the next thing to do is to look through the code. If there is no obvious syntax error, I will come here now and run the code as document. The name of the file is document. All right, Python document dash analysis. Right. If I press enter now, I'm going to get an output. Can you see? Connecting to form recognizer, this is running the analysis, and this is the outcome. Did you see that? It extracted the vendor name, the customer name, the invoice total, and it's because those were the variables that I asked it to get. Invoice total. This is a print operation to print out the total, to extract the customer name, to extract the vendor name as the ID or the required parameters from the operation. So yeah, that is that. Does anybody have any question? Is anything not clear? I will encourage you to take time during the week to just do this setup yourself. If you run into errors, let's look at it together in the next class. Or if you have questions, it will help. It will help for you to, and frankly, if you get to this level in your journey on Azure, you can begin to apply for jobs. Does anybody have any question?
No.
Okay, I guess we're all tired now.
Yes.